Good evening, friends. Welcome to the session on the US election result with Karan Verma. Welcome, Karan.
Thank you so much, Meena ji. It's a pleasure to be with you, and a good hello and hi, and whatever. Happy election
Yeah,
day to
thank you
everyone.
so much.
All the
Yeah.
viewers. Yeah.
So now, Karan, Donald Trump's political comeback was hailed as the greatest in history after the former president sealed a stunning return to the White House by defeating Kamala Harris in the US election. Now, Donald Trump has pulled off an astounding political comeback and regained the White House as he's declared the winner of the 2024 US presidential election. He becomes the first president in over 130 years and only the second in history to win a non consecutive second term. Now, currently, what happens now is that on all the mainstream channels, they're discussing, what's happening and all that. So let's discuss a little bit of the other side of what's happening, in the U.S. elections. For example, Kamala Harris seems to rather stunned, and she's even cancelled her own party.
Yeah.
Now it's a fact that see whenever a ship sinks, the captain still stands strong. But here you see that Kamala is still hasn't conceded Trump's victory. She hasn't spoken yet. Her and
Right.
Obama perhaps they are likely standing on George Soros's red carpet, explaining why they lost. So what is your take on that? Karan?
So first of all, Meena ji, it is an unbelievable feat. Just let this sink in. Here is a man who has survived two assassination attempts, two impeachments when he was president. He was disgraced and cancelled from all platforms, from Twitter, from Facebook, from everywhere. They had the entire judicial system against him, the Justice Department going absolutely crazy against him, against his businesses. And this man survives it all, takes on the deep state, and manages to win. So, this is a comeback of epic proportion, and it's inspiring in a lot of ways, if you ask me. That, when life hits you and you go down, you get up with that fist and you say, fight, 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 because that's what this man did. And he's pulled this off at this age. So, hats off to him for that, number one. Secondly, those who were pontificating about democracy, first of all, right from the onset, they had got it wrong. Kamala Harris is a joke in the name of democracy. She was a candidate who was hoisted upon. She was never elected. The last time she ran for the presidential campaign, she got 1% vote and was the first one to be out back in 2020. So she was never an elected candidate. She was selected and handpicked. So that's number one. So for all those who are pontificating democracy and how Trump is a threat to it, in fact, they were the ones who were practicing and violating the norms of democracy. They were the same ones who said, why is Trump not conceding the election in 2020? You remember that? Even though it was pretty questionable how the mail-in ballots kept coming 3 days, 4 days after the election day, which was 3rd November back in 2020. We couldn't have the results for days together. And now when the results have been declared and called by all networks and everyone, Kamala Harris hasn't still conceded. That tells you about the character of the party. And I'm telling you, Biden won't be there for the transition of Donald Trump. I can tell you this in writing right now. Same Joe Biden who had criticized Donald Trump back in 2020, trust me, he won't be there for the transition of Donald Trump. You wait and watch. That's going to happen in the next coming 2 months. It's also a victory against the deep state, Minaji. This deep state, we saw how Obama was absolutely rampaging across. We've never seen a former president campaign the way he campaigned or Michelle Obama campaigned. So they were pretty much the hired guns and machinery of the deep state. Where you mentioned George Soros, it's George Soros and some other foundations, I would say. And they didn't want this man, no matter what it took. They didn't want this man, even if it took two assassination attempts, but he survived it all. And I think this is where the end of the deep state begins. Donald Trump has time and again said, I will obliterate the deep state. I really hope he does walk the talk, because this deep state has caused enough turbulence in the world, whether it's staging coups across places in Middle East, whether it's Bangladesh, where they've done a thing or two. They've not had peace anywhere. The last 4 years where there was considerable world peace were the Trump years, believe it or not. Russia didn't invade anyone in those 4 years. The Arab world and Israel, they were coming close. The Abrahamic Accords were signed. So I believe that this should usher in an era of peace where people's voice is heard. The forgotten men and women that he keeps talking about, they are finally heard, and it's not the deep state that calls the shots.
But Karan, see, my question is that the deep state is just too deep to be defeated once and to be done with. When Trump won in 2016, almost
Yeah,
from the next day onwards, they started the "Not My President" campaign rallies.
correct,
Finally, they
correct.
found an excuse, in General George Floyd, and unleashed the black chaos. These
Mhm.
greatly impacted public opinion, and the toxic deep state will now also raise its ugly head again, and very soon it must be crushed again and again till it's weakened enough to give up, isn't it?
I think, Minaji, this time what we are seeing in Trump 2.0 is a rejuvenated version who's understood the game that he's
Yeah,
into now. I mean, he
yeah,
was new to Washington at that point of time. Look at the team he's collected around himself. Whether it's Elon Musk, it's uh, Dana White, it's Vivek Ramaswamy, it's Tulsi Gabbard, it's RFK Jr. I mean, he has a coalition of sorts this time of
yeah,
Avengers, as they're putting it, the X-Men around him. So
yeah.
this time he has understood. Elon Musk has been very helpful throughout this. I think he did the world a favor by buying Twitter, if you ask me.
Yes,
He saved
absolutely.
free speech. He pretty much saved free speech. The way they were going, the way Zuckerberg and all these people were going, he saved free speech. So
Yeah,
I really think that Trump is building a team of sorts. He's understood how this game is played. And if there is any one person who can defeat the deep state, let's stick our neck out and say it's Donald Trump. He's just won the election, and there's no reason why he can't obliterate them once and for all, I believe.
in fact, Karan, see, it was not only the deep state that we are talking about. It's neither Obama, it's not Kamala, but then there were other forces as well, as in CIA, the media,
Yeah,
CNN,
yeah,
NYT, Washington Post, the media mafia, as you call them. Then you have the
correct.
drugs mafia, the illegal immigrants, the Islamic ecosystem. So Trump defeated all of them, and
All of
it's very similar to what Modi did when he came back to power. So there is comparison between these two leaders, and the moment Modi ji congratulated him,
it.
everybody started getting into panic mode. Now, could you explain that reason? What is the relationship between India and between Modi and Trump going to be like?
So, first I think Donald Trump is a natural friend of India in a lot of ways. He was the first one, and we saw that recently, who called out the genocide of Hindus happening in Bangladesh. I think that is where he won a significant chunk of the Hindu vote. Nobody's called that out as explicitly and as clearly as Donald Trump called that out. I mean, he's not one of those who's going to,
I think it was in one of our chat shows, wasn't it?
absolutely,
That
absolutely,
you mentioned it. Yes.
true, true.
Yeah.
And he's not going to prop up these proxies like Muhammad Yunus and all these people. I mean, he's a no nonsense person, and he's someone you can't buy. I mean, he's a billionaire. You can't buy out Donald Trump. You can't bully him. So he's a man of convictions, and he has a natural chemistry with the prime minister, with Prime Minister Modi. He also understands that India is a significant player going into the future. He's had defense ties with India, and he was all for strengthening Quad because he wants to break the hegemony of China. He understands that China is a notorious state. I mean, what happened? He's minced no words in calling out the Wuhan virus. He calls it the China virus. And
Yes.
yes, there should have been a price to pay for what happened to the world. He was very clear about it. He did not like how China had made the world a dumping ground. That's why he imposed the tariffs. So he's the one who also called out, by the way, the radical terror and obliterated pretty much the ISIS network. He was very quick in calling. He also called out Pakistan. I mean, I remember in January 2018, he publicly decried their efforts and cut their military spending and said that Pakistan is harboring terrorists. So also he's someone who's not going to pontificate to India about its internal affairs, like what's happening in Kashmir after the removal of Article 370, as Kamala Harris did, or Ilan Umar and all these other people did. So he's a no nonsense guy who believes in peace. He's also not going to look at India through a jaundiced eye as to why India is buying oil from Russia. He's transactionally understands that, and he also wants normal terms with Russia. He wants peace, whether it's peace through strength. Yes, he's going to be a little tougher on trade, I believe. He is going to be tougher on trade for India. He is going to be cutting down on illegal immigration, but in the process, also be looking to cut down on immigration a bit, I believe. But still, I think in H1B visas, the ones who are technically qualified, he's time and again mentioned that he's all for welcoming them. So yes, there will be some tension there, perhaps, but it's okay. That's manageable. He's also going to be a big stickler for having dollar as the reserve currency. That's where again we are going to face a challenge of sorts. But by and large, I think, Minaji, this is a war that he's at least the first step he's won against wokeism, which was engulfing the world. This entire woke mentality of men competing in women's sports, this entire cabal, I think this deep state, this George Soros lobby, they really needed to be defeated. So I still see that the benefits are far more than the challenges with Donald Trump.
So, on a lighter note, do you
Hmm.
think that Donald Trump was, Donald Trump won because Kamala, was asked very simple questions by the American mainstream media, and even that she could not answer. So, it also shows the level of the mainstream media. I mean, if they really wanted her to win, they would have prepared her very well. But they asked her silly questions and she could not even answer that. So, do you think that could be one of the reasons why Trump won?
So I'm really on a lighter note. I'm really having a nice time enjoying the clips of the complete liberal meltdown. The media is
Yeah,
having a meltdown right now, whether
yeah,
it's CNN, ABC News, and I'm really waiting for this show, The View. There's a show by the
yeah,
name The View where Whoopi Goldberg and all these people come and they don't even mention Donald Trump's name as if he's some
yeah.
monster. So I'm waiting for that episode. I think every conservative is enjoying that. So Donald Trump Jr., his son, has just mentioned, okay, please send me the best meltdown memes. I'll repost the best meltdown memes. They're really having a tough time. And Minaji, what I really liked about Trump's campaign was that this was a campaign for the common man. I mean, the forgotten men and women he's time and again mentioned. This entire elitism, this liberal elite sitting in DC, who were telling the common folks, the steel mill workers in Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania or Michigan, as to how you have to live your life, as to what you have to do. This entire elitism was something that wasn't going well with people, calling them garbage, calling them deplorables. And that is where Donald Trump, who's actually grown up in New York, who's a billionaire, but he connected with the working class. He connected with the blue collar worker. I mean, that's incredible. I come to think of it. Someone who's not done this, but still managed to connect with them, managed to tell them that you're not going to be forgotten anymore. That America doesn't belong to the deep state. America doesn't belong to the sitting few in DC elites, but it belongs to you, the common man. And this is so similar to what Narendra Modi went through. He was mocked as a chaiwala. You remember that? Manish Shankar Iyer.
yes.
By the way, Manish Shankar Iyer today is having a meltdown. He's saying that Donald Trump, a monster like Donald Trump, what has the world come down to? A monster like him is today going to be the president. I can't believe it. Well, he couldn't believe it when he said that,
I think he got an insulin shot.
yeah, yeah. He said Mr. Modi should sell chai here at the INC, Indian National Congress office. So this talking down to someone who's had humble beginnings or someone who connects with the common man, I think this is a war cry against that. So that is very heartening to see, if you ask me.
Also, Karan, see, though Kamala has been acting like, Mother Teresa, it's a
Mm,
fact that Biden-Harris administration is uniquely responsible for the genocide in Gaza. Now, Harris is not some powerless bystander in this equation. She's an active and willing participant in it. Simply uttering the word ceasefire and weeping crocodile tears over the loss of civilian life, does not make her better than Biden. It just means that she knows how to play her part. So all this innocence that she shows, when she speaks, is all just hogwash.
absolutely. And look at the checks they've been writing to Zelensky. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't be expecting the war to stop if you're writing checks after checks like this to Zelensky, not actually trying to mediate and find a solution, but actually you are encouraging war. And look at the botched withdrawal they had in Afghanistan, where they left their own people, they left military equipment there for dying. Young little children were killed there. I mean, women literally threw off their kids off the fences. I mean, it was ridiculous what happened there. Again, in this entire mishandling of the Israel Iranian relationship and what's happened in Gaza, as you just mentioned, there was complete zero leadership. And Russia would have not been emboldened to invade Ukraine if not for their weakness. They failed to assert at the world level everywhere, and we saw that even during Obama's regime, I would say, the way they bombed the hell out of Libya at that point of time. So the fact is, the Democrat regimes, the last two regimes, even though they've pontificated world peace and other such things, they've actually encouraged war. I mean, they've let countries wreak havoc, and they've done precious little about it. So Donald Trump is the one who actually, the only president in the last 30 years where no new wars were fought in those 4 years. So people resonated with that. They understood that, okay, he might be a motor mouth, but at least he is someone who seeks peace. He's time and again said, I don't want to be the world police officer. I want to be the president of my country. I mean, that speaks a lot. He's asked NATO to chip in and pour in their funds. I mean, it can't go on like this, that just one country is responsible for every war. And he's been against needless wars. That is what connected with the common man who wants to, lead a good life, have a good family, and just earn the hard work, earn whatever he can for their hard work. So
Yeah.
that message, I think, message of peace is required in the world right now.
Yeah. Also, currency, we've been seeing how desperately, Barack Obama wanted Kamala to come back to power. In fact, as the counting was going on, he also tweeted, he said that it took several days to count every ballot in 2020. And it's very likely we won't know the outcome tonight either. So please keep a few things in mind as you make your voice heard today. Thousands of election workers around the country are working hard today. Respect them. So you see, there is a kind of desperation in his tweet, saying that somehow she's going to win, and the things are going to change. So look, what is it that Obama was expecting during these results as they were counting?
So, Meenaji, the mask of these sugar-coated liberals has fallen off. And Donald Trump has done a great job in taking this mask off in the last few years. He's so sugar-coated in this tweet. He's talking about the hard work. He doesn't care about the hard work of the election officials. He's laying the groundwork that in case the states are too close to call, we can be dependent on the mail-in ballots. And then when the mail-in ballots come, we all know who has the advantage in case of mail-in ballots and how things can go either way then. So he was laying the groundwork to ensure that elections are not called today. And once they are delayed, I mean, there's a lot that can happen at the local level. Let's not get into it. We saw many things that were not too pleasant last time in Georgia and other places. So he was laying the groundwork for that. But alas, his efforts went in vain because it was a pretty decisive victory by the end of it. And when Trump won Pennsylvania, I think it was all over. And he won it quite comprehensively by the end of it. So there was no scope for mail-in ballots to come in. Also, the number of officials were increased this time. The system was much efficient than last time around. Republicans were a lot more careful. Trump made the right noises when he said, we have to be careful, we have to be careful. So he made it a little difficult. And as the hashtag that was trending on election day was too big to rig. We can't let it be rigged. So, this all went in Donald Trump's favor. And Obama is the one who must be shedding the maximum tears right now, I can tell you. So the interesting thing is, I'll say this: Obama is the one who must be shedding the maximum tears, and Biden must be the guy who's smiling the most right now. That's what I can tell you right now.
And then talking about, it's quite a parallel what has been happening in India, when Narendra Modi won and now that Trump has won. The Hollywood celebrities, everybody from Jennifer Lopez to Lady Gaga and Eminem, and even someone like Oprah Winfrey, who should be, restricting herself to, talk shows. she has
Hmm.
also been speaking so highly about Kamala. So there was a desperation among these celebrities, and they said that they would leave USA should Donald Trump come to power. This was the same thing that a lot of the Bollywood actors spoke when Modi was going to come to power. So what is it that frightens them, or is it that they have some sort of a pact with the deep state and Soros that they are supposed to speak in this manner because there's a lot of control happening there, and actors are expected to speak in a certain manner if they are to get roles in coming upcoming movies.
So, Minaji, I've had an interaction with many of the celebrities here in India, and what I know is that they believe they are entitled. They believe that they are the upper crust of society, and they can't imagine someone who speaks the language of a common man. They can't imagine them coming to power, them being in a position where they call the shots. They can't imagine that. So this entire cabal, this cocktail party circuit, I would say, they are a close knit and they want to hold on to their positions, their gravy train very, very, very tightly. And when they see an outsider, they start talking down about them. They start looking down. I heard what Robert De Niro had said about Donald Trump. I mean, it was atrocious, the language he used against him. And they, by the way, in Trump's case, they were all lining up at Trump Tower when Trump was not in politics. They were all lining up at Trump Tower, welcoming him, being at his party, because Trump was also a part of the Hollywood circuit. He was conservative at heart, but he was a part of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's made guest appearances in many films. He's had a very successful TV show in The Apprentice. So, how they flipped completely on Donald Trump. I mean, Oprah Winfrey's written letters to Donald Trump. Donald Trump came on her show during her last her favorite farewell tour. Donald Trump was one of the main guests, and she completely flipped and started calling him racist, bigot, xenophobic, and all these names. So they're having a complete meltdown because they understand that the ground under their feet has totally been taken off. And I really think that the Hollywood or the Bollywood elites need to learn a thing or two about how the country actually works. They're sitting in their ivory towers and don't know nothing. I'll give you an example now that we're talking about it. The other day, Javed Akhtar in India, he's this fashionable socialist, communist, whatever you call him. And there was this documentary coming on Netflix about his life, Angry Young Men. There's a documentary in which he says, he stands for, by the way, he stands for socialism and communism. He says that I was very clear that whatever the actor gets, I need to get 1 lakh more than the actor. I mean, someone should tell him this is peak capitalism, capitalism
Yes,
on steroids.
yeah,
This is what you want for yourself, and you are preaching to others
teaching,
that you should
yeah,
be
the opposite.
socialist and wealth should be redistributed. So today, their hypocrisy has been called out. I mean, Javed Akhtar, I'll again use his example, calls himself a Nehruvian because Nehru stood for free speech. Somebody should tell him that Majru Sultanpuri, someone from his ilk, a very famous lyricist, was put in jail by Nehru for writing an article, Hitler Ka Chela. When he called Nehru Hitler Ka Chela, he was thrown in prison, not even castigated, thrown in prison. So now, with the internet and with people like you and all of us coming together and doing these shows, their mask has fallen off. And Donald Trump became a symbol, whether it's Donald Trump or Narendra Modi here in India, they became a symbol of leading this movement of calling out this liberal hypocrisy.
Yeah. So, Kamala has been fooling us, saying that she is, her Indian roots and all that. And then people say that, see, Indians didn't even bother to vote for her, though she is part Indian, but she's not a Hindu. And the lady who's coming, that is Usha Chilukuri
JD
Vanse,
Vance,
isn't it? Yeah, wife of J.D. Vanse. She will be the first Hindu second lady of the United States of America. So how does it, they're trying to hit at the fact that, see, Indians don't even want their own people, and that's why they voted for Donald Trump. But here you have another lady who's an Indian and a Hindu too, who's coming to power through her husband. So could you comment on that, Karan?
So, Minaji, the best thing was they never played their identity card. I mean, the polity today has evolved to a point where they look beyond identity. Yes, we are proud someone is Indian, But we're not going to be voting for someone if they have anti-Indian policies, and just because they happen to be Indian, we are
Absolutely.
not going to be held to ransom, and we are going to blindly vote for you. So that was questioning the intelligence of the voter. So the voter is much more intelligent than that, and that's what we saw again. The entire Hindu community actually fell in love with Donald Trump when he called out what the genocide is happening in Bangladesh. When he has time and again said that I stand with the Hindus, I love their way of life. And JD Vance, and time and again, these Republicans are demonized as someone who looks down on women, who doesn't intermingle with women of different color and race. So JD Vance and his wife, they're a beautiful couple. I mean, look at them. They've set up a wonderful family. It speaks volumes about them. They don't need to wear their identity on their sleeve. It's just visible to everyone. They were not phony as Kamala Harris was. She was a phony act. She never called out Pakistan's terrorism once. Trump was very clear in calling that out. She pontificated to India about removal of Article 370. So people look through this hypocrisy, at least in today's day and age. They don't fall for symbolism or identity. They go for the real meat, and that's what people did.
Yeah. And also, one last question before we wind up.
Sure.
With regards to Donald Trump's son, through
Yeah.
Melanie. Now, apparently, he's the one
Yeah.
who's been doing a
Barrett
lot of
Trump.
work. Yeah.
Barrett
And,
Trump.
he has been targeting the youngsters in USA. He's been doing a lot of work. And it's also surprising that he resembles a very young Trump, in his looks as well. So, could you tell us a little bit about that? Uh,
So he's 6 feet 9 inches. He's really tall. And how the times change. Back in 2016, if someone checks, he was a little boy. He was just 10 years old at that time, and he was barely able to control his sleep. He was pretty much dozing off during Trump's speech. He was very sweet boy back then, and he's standing next to Trump, and he's barely rubbing his eyes, not able to control his sleep. And today he's 6 feet 9. So in 8 years he's come a long way. So Trump says that he has a very good eye for social media and the trends there, and he, in fact, came up with a list of all the podcasts that Donald Trump should go for. So, podcasts were a very big medium of communication in this election. And in fact, Joe Rogan's podcast, even some wrestlers like The Undertaker's podcast, he's the one who shortlisted all those podcasts where Donald Trump went. And, his campaign pretty much revolved around a lot of podcasts. He did a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan endorsed him on the night before the election. Joe Rogan kept requesting Kamala Harris for a podcast. She did not oblige. So that's where he's played a role. In fact, Trump has been very lucky. He's had children who've always played a role in his campaigns, whether it was Ivanka in 2016. Donald Trump Jr. has been a pillar of support for him all through this year. His daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, happens to be the RNC chairperson right now. So his entire family came together. And this also, Meena ji, resonated with the voters. That here is a man who's not just successful professionally, he also has a very loving and a supportive family. That speaks about the character of the man. In fact, Hillary Clinton, I'll tell you, back in 2016, during the debates, peak debates, the second debate, I remember, Hillary Clinton was asked a question: is there one thing that is likable about Donald Trump? And she said, I have to give it to the man. He has amazing children who really respect and love him. And that speaks a lot about Donald Trump. So when you get that sort of praise from every quarter, that also solidifies your image as a conservative, that he's someone who understands family, who understands this institution. So that also really connected with people in a way.
Also, one small question before
Sure.
we wind up. Also, currency, you remember,
Mhm.
out of the actors, Hollywood actors and
Mhm.
directors, Mel Gibson has stood out, in his support for Trump. And also
Mhm.
remember, Mel Gibson was speaking in favor of the movie on trafficking. The Freedom, I forget the name, Freedom. There's a movie called Freedom something. And that's an excellent movie which talks about the drug cartel and trafficking. Now,
Mhm.
he has said that, see, this is an area that needs to be tackled. And every source, for example, the mainstream media, everybody tried to block the movie. And we had to get it through different sources, either by downloading or something. So, until, of course, then we could get it freely. But everybody wanted to see the movie, which was about little children being trafficked. Now, this was a very strong statement that Mel Gibson was also giving, that you need to return to religion, move away
Right.
from these strange practices. So a lot of the strange practices are happening in USA, and now he is also supporting, Trump, which means that is it, a return back to, religious values and Christianity in the, old sense.
So, Minaji, for decades now, whether it be US or whether it be India, unfortunately, the media, the film industry, the literature, the university education, that has been in the stranglehold of the liberal illiterati. And they hate religion. They're the ones who believe religion is opium of the masses. If communists be quoted verbatim, they believe religion is opium of the masses. So, the credit to them is that they have managed to surreptitiously get their people as Trojan horses into all these positions of power, whether it be media or literature or whatever. And we've seen that in both the countries. So now, when people are waking up and trying to reclaim their roots, reclaim their traditions, there's a lot of backlash against them. Mel Gibson is facing that sort of backlash. In India, Vivek Agnihotri, Anupam Kher, the likes of
Yes.
these people who are talking about common sense solution. It's common sense. Illegal immigration is wrong. It's illegal. Look at the word illegal. How can you defend that? Who's talking about immigration? He's talking about illegal immigration. And they don't want to talk about it. Puberty blockers being given to kids in school without the consent of their parents is wrong. It's hideous. How can we encourage that? So when someone talks about that, he's frowned upon by this liberal illiterati who've had it their way for decades. But I really think it's changing now. The tide is changing. It's going to take some time. That's why Trump's slogan, drain the swamp. He believes this has been the swamp that has flooded DC and Hollywood and all this media. Drain the swamp actually connected with the common man. And the same thing connected in India also. You know, when Mr. Modi, as a chai wala, he spoke of his roots, he spoke of how he's an outsider, he's never been to Delhi in the at least the power circles of Delhi, it resonated. So it's going to take some time. Their roots are very deep. The deep state is indeed deep, but I think the tide is changing, and what's happened today is a welcome step in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, from Karan and from the Candid Media family, we all congratulate Trump and the wonderful victory that US is seeing now.
One
And
small thing, one
yes,
small thing before winding
yes,
off.
yes,
I also see a very big life lesson in what's happened with Donald Trump. I remember that visual when he was down, and I've tweeted that when he was down and blood dripping from his mouth. And in that moment, he got up and he said, fight, fight, and fight. So I think for anyone who's going through a tough time in life, you should not throw in the towel. You should get up and say, fight, 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 and you might win the way Donald Trump won.
in fact, Karan, see, even the Rath Yatra, the movement in America, it
Mm,
was sanctioned by Donald Trump. When they did not have any place to, keep it, he was the one who sanctioned it and allowed them to have the rally. So they say, in a sense, it is also, another force that has helped him. But
they
to
say
tell you the truth, currency, I did go to a few temples in the last few days, and I did pray for Trump's victory. And I'm not talking as a biased, journalist or anything. It's just that, see, I feel that right from the times of Mahabharata to Ramayana, we are talking about dharma fighting adharma. So in this case, I really feel that in America, what was happening is the same. It is dharma fighting against adharma. If you look at the number of negative things that have been happening in America, and here comes a person who has enough money. He's not bothered about money. He doesn't
right.
need to, fight elections for money. Here he comes and he says that I'm going to make USA strong again. So I feel it's the right thing that has happened, whatever force it is.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
God helps those who help themselves. He really, really put in some fight. He is a fighter. That one has to say, one has to learn this ability from him. The ability to stand back up, come back up, and keep fighting, keep persisting. It's unbelievable.
Thank you so much, Karan. Always interesting
My pleasure.
talking to you
My
because mainly you do not mince words and you speak as candidly as all of us do. And
my
it's really a joy to listen to you. Thank you. Good night.
pleasure.
Jai
Good night.
Hind and Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.